It had taken weeks to prepare for our anniversary dinner. I had picked her favorite restaurant, but she kept talking about how the window table overlooking the city skyline had been reserved since our third anniversary. The waiters had even gone out of their way to bring out a bottle of wine with a ribbon tied around it as we sat there, and everything seemed perfect. Olivia, smiling that recognizable smile that used to brighten my life, looked perfect, especially with her favorite vintage in front of her. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to think that we could get through the difficult time we were going through. I had even gone the extra mile to purchase a personalized necklace, a delicate chain with a small pendant engraved with our wedding date. My speech was ready. I was going to remind her of everything we had built together. I hoped the night would rekindle something between us, melt away the coldness and erase the distance that had settled in over the past few months. But what I didn't know, what I could have never predicted, was that Olivia had prepared a speech of her own, and just as the wine arrived halfway through dinner, she delivered it. She leaned forward, raised her glass for a toast, her face eerily composed, and said, "I've been cheating on you for 2 years." Her voice was calm, emotionless for a moment. The world tilted. The glass in my palm felt weightless, as if floating in mid-air. I waited for any sign that this was some kind of cruel anniversary joke, but her eyes fixed on me with an unsettling clarity informed me that although the words hung in the air like a dense fog, betrayal, fury, humiliation, and everything else came over me at once. I chose to do something that even shocked me rather than allow those feelings to rule me. I raised my glass and grinned as though nothing had happened. I said, "To your new life," in a firm voice, and she blinked, her brows furrowing just a little in the slightest sign of perplexity. She crossed her face, realizing that this wasn't the response she had anticipated. I took a quiet, thoughtful drink of wine and then relaxed back in my chair. "Does he make you happy? Please, just be calm. No yelling, no crying, no desperation," I inquired. Olivia moved uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "It's complicated," she muttered, and I realized that she wasn't sure. She had persuaded herself that she was giving up a regular, boring life, but now that I had responded unexpectedly, she was starting to have second thoughts. The waiter brought us the dessert menu, blissfully ignorant of the emotional bomb that had just exploded at our table. Olivia hardly recognized him, but I casually looked at it and said, "I'll take a look." Then I turned to face her and said, "You should try the crème brûlée." She looked at me in shock, asking, "How can you pretend this isn't a big deal?" I put the menu down, and you've already made up your mind. When dessert came, I excused myself and went outside where the cool air helped me decompress. "Olivia, there's no purpose in my getting upset over something that wasn't totally true." Of course, on the inside, it felt like my heart was being torn apart, but I wasn't going to let her see me shatter. I took a deep breath, took out my phone, and called Nathan, my lawyer. It had been years since I had needed a lawyer, but tonight I did, and he answered quickly. Without asking any questions, he said, "Send me what you have and we'll meet in the morning." I hung up and called Alan, the private investigator I had hired months prior, because I had suspicions about Olivia's late-night disappearances and secretive behavior, and I needed proof before confronting her. Alan had provided me with a ton of pictures, videos, dates, hotel receipts, and recordings of their conversations. Olivia believed she had everything under control and that she had the upper hand, but she was clueless. As I got back to the table, I was 10 steps ahead of Olivia, who was looking through her phone. I asked, "How are you going to explain this to the kids?" Her head snapped up for the first time that evening, and she looked genuinely uncertain. "I'll figure it out," she muttered. I raised an eyebrow and she scowled at me. "You don't have to make things more difficult than it is." She was in control, but the story was now mine. As I left the restaurant, I could hear the door swinging in the cool night air closing behind me, giving me a weird feeling of closure. I didn't turn around to check if Olivia was still seated there. Maybe for the first time in months, I wasn't required to unravel everything. Piece by piece, I had the advantage for years, and I wasn't about to give it up. I took a few steps before taking out my phone over the previous few months, calling Alan. My private investigator had become second nature when he picked up. I said, "It's time," without hesitation. He replied, "I'll send everything to her and him before the evening is done. It will be in their inboxes. I'll make it public as well." There was a pause when I added, "Stay steady, but resolute. The people closest to us need to know what she's been doing." "Are you certain?" he asked. I've never been more certain of anything I said with conviction. By the time I got home, my mind was racing, yet I felt strangely at ease. I poured myself a glass of whiskey because the wheels had already started turning, and there was no stopping them. Now I sat at the kitchen table and waited. It didn't take long for my phone to start buzzing nonstop with emails and messages. I ignored the deluge of calls and texts, instead opening my laptop and logging into the anonymous account. A few weeks earlier, Alan and I had produced screenshots of messages, pictures, and thorough accounts of Olivia's liaison with David. As friends, family, and acquaintances submitted comments, the post's views surged, exposing every lie and treachery. The general conclusion was that Olivia had gone too far and that there was no turning back. Some were startled, some were outraged, and some naturally attempted to protect her. My phone rang once more, and this time Olivia's name appeared on the screen. I felt vindicated and enraged at the same time as I watched it ring. She kept calling, and when I eventually answered, her voice was panicked. "What the hell did you do, Marcus? Why would you do this?" I sat back in my chair and spoke in a cool but firm tone. "Why wouldn't I? After 2 years. Did you really think that destroying our marriage behind my back wouldn't have consequences? This is cruel," she snapped. "You're trying to destroy me. You destroyed yourself." I said calmly, "I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth." After a long period of silence, she whispered, "What do you want from me?" I put my drink down within Marcus. I wanted a partner I could trust who valued the life we created together. But since you made it obvious that wasn't you, all I want right now is for you to own up to your mistakes. The fallout began in earnest. The following morning, friends called one another to share their disgust and outrage at Ivia. Others severed all contact with her. David wasn't immune either. His job, a prominent law firm, put him on indefinite leave, damaging his hard-earned reputation after years of dedication. Olivia tried to defend herself by calling friends and family to make amends, but the more she tried to deny the truth, the worse she looked. A few days later, I received a call from David, and I almost didn't answer, but my curiosity overcame me. "Why did you do it?" His voice was defeated. "Why air everything out like this?" I replied simply that you needed to know what it feels like. I could hear his shallow breathing on the other end, but he didn't respond. And finally he muttered, "I never meant for this to happen." I laughed icily. Whether you intended them or not, decisions have repercussions, which is why Olivia arrived to the house at the end of the week.